Up next, we have Bert Verdonck from LNDS, who will dive into what international data sharing really means in practice and how cross-border systems can uphold security and trust. And so with that, please join me in welcoming Bert to the stage.
And I'm very happy to be able to speak to you this morning. My name is Bert Verdonck. I have the chance to lead the Luxembourg National Data Service, which is a governmental organization also supported by the Luxembourg Research Institutes in order to facilitate and make the reuse of data for innovation, for policy making, much more easy, much more efficient, much more fast, in a trusted environment. And this cannot be done in a local context only. We are part of a global economy. Globalization is all around us in production, in the way we travel, in the way we participate in the global world. And that is especially also true in when we talk digitalization and when we talk data. The government has established recently these three really consistent and important strategies. And these strategies are built on 6 enablers. And the 6th enabler is actually about international collaboration, because there is this realization that this cannot be done in isolation within the borders or within the boundaries of a single country. And that is also well understood by Europe, because since the last 2 commissions, a lot has been done on developing a legal landscape in order to facilitate, but also to control these aspects of data sharing. And one can be in favor or against more regulation, but we should all agree that some level is absolutely needed in order to avoid chaos and also to create fair opportunities for all participants. And in Europe, we have implemented this through these regulations that are there to protect European values and our fundamental rights. It all started with a GDPR, data protection, but then it has been extending in the Data Governance Act, which is currently in implementation here in Luxembourg, the AI Act as well in the legislative stage, and then forthcoming also the European Health Data Space, the EU Data Act. All of this together form a regulatory basis, a regulatory framework, which there's no choice, we have to make it practical. We need to make that efficient. And that's where we're very happy to collaborate with other governmental organizations in order to make sure we can implement this in Luxembourg in a very efficient and practical manner. So the strategies elaborated on before by the government include another interesting concept. It's a concept about the data factory. And that is a way in which we try to illustrate how that could work. If we look at traditional manufacturing, it's a process where we transform raw materials into a very usable and higher value product. It's a transformation. And in the factory, nowadays, factories are high technology environments where we develop these products in an efficient manner. It is a competitive area, but where also innovation is applied to make these products always better from a usability perspective, from a value perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective in a sovereign context. And I know sovereignty was discussed before. Very similarly, data goes through a transformation. Data after collecting is typically a raw product. It serves a primary purpose, but then it needs refining in that, what we call the data factory, in order to create a more reusable, a more valuable data product. And that's a very early concept. It's described in our data strategy, and that is a concept that we will be very happy to further elaborate on and develop with all the stakeholders of this data ecosystem here in Luxembourg. The data factory is just one part of the larger story. A factory is part of typically a food chain or a supply chain. And in data, we can see this as a digital innovation chain. And we all know that AI needs data. So a very typical situation is where raw data is collected, in compliance, is processed in this data factory in order to supply AI developments with data that is collected at high quality and on a fair basis. So all these capabilities is what we try to further develop as part of the data factory concept. One aspect of that is something that my organization has introduced in our data summit last year, is what we call the end-to-end data journey. We have seen that there's a lot of confusion in how data can be obtained, how it should be processed, how we can stay compliant with all this legislation, but also very practical things of data formats, interoperability, data quality issues. So how can be dealt with? Actually, that there is a very repeatable generic process. Just like car manufacturing since the 70s, driven by Japan, has been highly optimized and standardized in high-quality production processes, the same capability needs to be developed in the area of data. And that is what is happening in this end-to-end data pipeline. There's an aspect for the user of data, the researcher searching data, tries to get it at the quality they need. And there's an aspect of the provider who wants to provide the data, but also needs to keep control on where that data goes. So all of these aspects are described in this standardized data journey. Another quote from the strategy documents, again to illustrate how we cannot solve this in the local economy, but Luxembourg has that ambition to establish itself as a digital hub, a European hub with these strategies. And that's exactly what I would like to elaborate on in the remainder of this speech. In order to become that will not come by itself. So we need to learn, we need to develop capabilities, we need to foster our collaborations, including our international partners, in order to further that ambition and to make that concrete. At this moment, this is a list of European initiatives that LNDS is already involved with. Because through these European consortia, part of the reason is, of course, to add some additional subsidy money here, but that's not the main reason. The reason here is to really learn from this international group of participants in these various projects. All of these live at the European scale, sometimes even with partners beyond Europe. But in all of these projects, we are there to learn, to contribute some of our capabilities, and in return, we learn from the capabilities of these other consortia partners. I can easily say, in the sum of all of these projects together, we are interacting with more than 150 other European research organizations or innovative companies. And that's a huge learning network from which we bring the most promising capabilities, we bring them back to Luxembourg. And that is a strong reason why we foster and we stimulate the participation in these European projects. Further, some examples. A very important one is the Genomics Data Infrastructure, or GDI project, which is part of a much larger beyond 1 million genome vision, which the Luxembourg government has also underscribed. And for many years, we have been member of the Elixir network, which is the European research infrastructure for genomics, and we are driving, my team is contributing certain technical components of this European scale infrastructure. Some of this goes slow. In some countries, national infrastructures exist, but nobody in Europe in its own can leverage the 500 million European patients, right? So that's why we need to build an infrastructure that can really scale to our 500 million citizens, such that we can really leverage clinical innovation on the full scale of our population, which is very diverse. And for genomics, you need diversity. So you need to be able to leverage this across Europe. Elixir, I already mentioned, is the European life science infrastructure. Luxembourg is a very active participant of the Elixir network, and that's really where we try to step beyond national collaborations into that international space, in this case for genomics. Some of the health stakeholders, these projects led by the Luxembourg Institute of Health, are really interesting as well because of their cross-border reach. The Parkinson Net project is collaborating with other countries, started in the Netherlands. Luxembourg very rapidly copied the concept, and there's constant exchange of clinical data and progress between the countries involved with this Parkinson Net initiative in order to improve the care of Parkinson patients. Similarly, Clinova is a cross-border project involving Germany, France, Switzerland, led by Luxembourg, which is also bringing these clinical data together in order to accelerate the study of the effectiveness of these medications and drugs. So these are very impactful projects which can only have these results when they combine the data across borders. In the same vein, Data Spaces for Health is another initiative which is trying to build these capabilities. In this case, trying to apply also principles from the Gaia-X Data Spaces framework from Europe. It's also a place where we try to bring these capabilities into the country, and from there, then also expand into cross-border collaborations, in this case specifically to Japan. Also, other organizations like LISER is driving constantly these cross-border studies, cross-border collaborations. MUST is a study about the mobility in the Grande Région. And again, here, mobility is a cross-border problem, right? I hope we all agree. There's nothing you can just solve for your local road network. You need to include the needs of our cross-border commuters. And that's exactly what this study has been done. MUST Plus is now, there's a next study started, which we support also LISER in doing this. I want to mention a few more memberships on the international scale where LNDS is an active part of. One is the My Data organization. They will have their big annual event in September in Helsinki. And that's an organization which we joined because we really want to learn citizen-centric approaches. Because sovereignty is important for a country. Sovereignty is also an individual right. Yeah. So do I have control on my data? And mydata.org is My Data Global is a very important organization developing our understanding and the capabilities there. We will be present with the presentation in September there. And myself, I'm also a board member of Gaia-X, so I happen to know a little bit what is going on with that association. We still believe there is a very crucial development going on. And the core element of Gaia-X, it has been misunderstood many times, but the core element is a trust framework. And trust is a crucial aspect. We need to learn how to translate trust, which we can develop on a personal basis when we talk to each other, human to human. But we need also a technical means to implement trust in a digital way. And that is what the trust framework is about. It's a little complicated, but it is technical means in order to ensure trust between participants in a digital transaction. In the broader picture, we contribute also to the Data Spaces Support Center, which is a European initiative trying to standardize and harmonize how large organizations and countries on the European scale make these data sharing infrastructures. This is European Commission funded, and the Commission is driving all these common European data spaces. And in the Database Support Center, we're figuring out how can this be done on a scalable manner. There's a huge network again. I want to stress the importance of the international collaboration in the Data Spaces Support Center with a large multitude of data space initiatives which are currently in progress in various domains, not just health. This is about mobility, energy, learning, smart cities, and so forth, on the European scale. There's a lot of strategic stakeholders in there, which we, through our collaboration with the Data Space Support Center, we have network and connection to all these supportive organizations. And very concretely, they bring back a blueprint. And we learn what that blueprint is, and we try to apply it. Blueprint has components of how to build these data sharing infrastructures. This could only be possible on the international scale and on the European scale. So dscc.eu is the website. You find all the resources over there. But that is where we contribute to actively and where we also constantly bring capabilities back to Luxembourg. If you want to learn more about this, we organize with several other parties the Data Summit Luxembourg. It will be on the 2nd of December this year, annual event, and really focused on data sharing, data exchange, creating value by secondary use of data. Very much invited to this event. At this moment, we're also looking for contributions and presenters for this summit. So you're happy to scan the code, look at the website, and there you find a form if you have a contribution to make at this next event. Thank you for hosting us here at the Nexus, and heading it over to the next speaker. Thank you.